To let everyone know, yes, Amber just clicked on it, but just to let everybody know, we're just going to be recording the presentation portion of the presentation, primarily because we want to make sure that we have this resource available on our website for folks that maybe couldn't be here today, or other nonprofits in the state that might be interested in learning about this really important content. But I'm actually going to go ahead and pass it over to Amber because she's starting our presentation. So thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. So for those of you that just joined, so my name is Amber Hay. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a recent addition to the Office of the Student Loan Advocate. My role is as the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Advocate, or PSLF. Obviously, I'm here today with Jessica as well as Terry, and they'll reintroduce themselves in just a second. Today, we're here to speak with you about the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. We'll refer to it generally as PSLF moving forward. Our goal is to share with you employer tips and resources so that you can share this amazing benefit with your employees and help them on their path to student loan forgiveness through the program that really recognizes the hard work they do every day to serve the public. So with that being said, I'll let the rest of the team introduce themselves. Terry, if you'll go ahead and go first.
Sure. Hello again. So I'm a little bit newer than Amber. I've been with the program since July, and my role within the OFM State HR office is really to serve state agency employers and state employees themselves to navigate the PSLF process, specifically addressing any issues that our employees may have with the certification process. And then I am privileged to be able to work with Jessica and Amber in terms of making sure we have great materials available, that people know how to connect with the Student Loan Advocate Office when needed. And very, very glad to be here. And I just thank everybody who's taken the time to learn about the program. Jessica?
Thank you, Terry. So hi, everyone. For those of you that just joined, my name is Jessica Manfredi. I am Washington State Student Loan Advocate. The Office of the Student Loan Advocate, which has the same name as my title, it's kind of funny, works directly with student loan borrowers to address complaints and to help them navigate issues and identify resources such as the PSLF program. Just as a heads up, we will be sharing a copy of the slides with NAWA after today's presentation so they can share that information with you. And we're also going to be sharing the links that we're going to be providing on the slides throughout the presentation in the chat with you. So I'll go ahead and pass it back to Amber so that we can get started.
All right, so today we'll give you an overview briefly of PSLF. As we know, not everyone has a knowledge yet of the program. We'll also give you some key data points for Washington State borrowers in particular. We know that student loan debt is one of the biggest financial challenges that your employees face. And so we know that also that taking advantage of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program has been confusing and frustrating for both employees and employers alike. So we'll talk through available resources, how PSLF can be leveraged as a tool for recruitment and retention, and how employers can help their employees access this benefit. We do have a bit of time at the end of the presentation for questions, so please go ahead and take note of them as we go through the slides, and we'll talk about those questions then at the end. So what exactly is PSLF? The Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program is a federal program that forgives the remaining balance on direct loans after a borrower has made 120 qualifying monthly payments, 10 years essentially of payments, under a qualifying repayment plan while working full-time for an eligible public service employer. The federal government is essentially saying, in exchange for your service in serving the public by taking a government or nonprofit job where there's a public need for your skills and your passions, we'll lighten your financial load after you meet those certain conditions. And so understanding the PSLF program and how to navigate earning forgiveness is vital to help ensuring that ensuring that we help passionate public servants remain in the communities that they serve.
I'd like to highlight is that the people in Washington State are benefiting from the PSLF program. and more borrowers have their student loans forgiven daily. The data that we're looking at right now comes from Department of Education's website, and we do also mirror it on our OFM PSLF website. As you can see, in March 2022, there were over 3,000 people with processed PSLF discharges. As of March 2024, over 19,000 borrowers in Washington State have received forgiveness under PSLF. And I'm a numbers geek, so I just got to throw this one out. That represents a 533% increase in the loans that have been discharged since 2022. And this translates into $1.2 billion of debt being forgiven through the program for borrowers in our state. This data does demonstrate how PSLF is working. The PSLF approval process can be confusing and really challenging, as Amber just referenced, but the benefits to public service employees can be tremendous. So thank you again for coming, taking the time to learn about our program and how you can support your employees in obtaining student loan forgiveness.
All right, so now that you've heard some of the success of the PSLF program, let's talk a little bit about what's considered qualifying employment for PSLF. Employment for PSLF needs to be an average of at least 30 hours a week. That can be one full-time public service job or multiple part-time jobs that meet that 30-hour per week threshold, as long as they are with all with qualifying public service employers. So if you have part-time employees that maybe work for your organization and with somebody else's that's also a nonprofit, they can combine those hours to meet that 30-hour per week threshold. Generally, a borrower must be directly employed by the qualifying public service employer, as in their W-2 would come from them. That means that most individual contractors would not qualify for PSLF. Public service employer means any level of government or nonprofit organization. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail just in a second, but the role or position held within the organization does not matter. It just matters that the employer is a qualifying public service employer. And note that borrowers need to be employed at the time that they actually apply for forgiveness. For nonprofits, all 501c3 tax-exempt organizations are considered qualifying employers. Full stop, just all 501c3s. Nonprofits with other tax statuses may be considered qualifying if they devote the majority of their FTE employees to providing certain qualifying public services in certain areas. Those areas include emergency management, military or civilian service to military, public safety, law enforcement, public interest law, public health, education, early childhood education, library services, public service for individuals with disabilities. So there's kind of a wide range of fields. And so I've included a link on the slide, and I think Terry will drop it in the chat as well. But you can look to see that qualifying services that for nonprofits that are other than the 501c3 tax status. So, and if you're not sure if your organization qualifies, stay tuned because we're going to review how you can find that out as well.
All right, so now we're going to talk about how PSLF can be a good strategy for recruitment and retention. First, while the statistics that we shared earlier showed that more people are qualifying for PSLF and enrolling in the program in Washington State, it's also important to show that there's a human face to this issue. PSLF is a transformative benefit for Washington State public employees. You don't have to take my word for it. You can see it here in a few short testimonial phrases that a couple of borrowers in our state have shared about achieving forgiveness. I'm going to highlight a couple of them. So Shelly Wisty from Employment Security Department shared that forgiveness is life-changing. It makes it possible not to just survive, but to prosper. And Jim Coffey from the Cowlitz Family Health Center, which is a nonprofit, also shared that this is a burden that has long awaited to be relieved and allows me to save the loan payments for my retirement. So very transformative program for those who are able to receive forgiveness. And while PSLF makes a huge difference in your employees' lives, the program is often an overlooked recruitment and retention tool. PSLF helps with employee recruitment because as student debt loads unfortunately rise, people tend to be more attracted to this benefit. It can help make it easier for recruits to make a decision between working in the public sector versus working in the private sector, not just based on their student loan debt alone. PSLF also helps with employee retention, and this is actually by design because the program takes 10 years of public service employment in order for the borrower to qualify. And then finally, PSLF can also help the overall quality of your employees. So the employees that are interested in this benefit will likely come with higher education that they need to do their jobs. And employees can also be more productive if they're working towards PSLF because they have less stress that is often associated with having high student debt loads. But more importantly, all these benefits require no direct investment from the employer, making it a very low effort, low investment benefit for your employees. And I just want to highlight that we conducted a survey last month with Washington State borrowers employed at public service employers, and it included nonprofit employees. We had over 1,600 respondents to this survey. And as you can see, at least 40% of the survey respondents said that the promise of earning forgiveness through the PSLF program affected the decision to begin working in the public sector. So almost half of everybody that answered the survey. And even more revealing is the fact that 65% of the survey respondents said that the promise of student loan forgiveness influenced their decision to stay in the public service for at least 10 years. And these results suggest that public employees in Washington State value PSLF both as a recruitment and especially as a retention strategy. We want to show that this is an important benefit for your employees and that you as the employer can play a very important role in ensuring that your employees can access the benefits of the PSLF program.
So PSLF, it sounds like this really amazing benefit. So you might be asking yourself, what can I do to ensure that my employees are actually working towards and achieving this forgiveness through this program? And so based on our survey results and our experience helping borrowers over the last few years, our office has come up with about 4 different specific actions or best practices that you can take as an employer to ensure that your employees are accessing PSLF. That first action that you can take is to advertise to both prospective and current employees that you are a PSLF qualifying employer. And so in order to kind of verify that you're qualifying, so as mentioned, 501c3 nonprofits are always qualifying employers. However, sometimes that information might be incorrect on the Federal Student Aid's employer search database for PSLF. So we recommend that you check to see if your nonprofit is showing up as a PSLF eligible employer using the PSLF employer search tool. In order to use this tool, you'll need your organization's federal employee identification number, federal employer identification number, or EIN. And you will also need to enter some mock employment dates and then click on search. Terry's putting the link in the chat for this so that you can access it. And again, it'll be available on the slides. Once you've entered the dates and your EIN, the employer tool will spit out 1 or more results for that EIN. If you're a 501c3 organization, your organization should show up as eligible, hopefully, just like the example at the top of this slide. However, there is a small chance your organization will show up incorrectly, such as ineligible, like our example here on the second half of the slide. One of our state agencies until very recently was showing as ineligible incorrectly. You might see the ineligible designation. Other ways that employers can show up incorrectly, they might have an undetermined or a not found designation. And so we'll talk about what to do in that instance in a minute. Assuming your organization shows up as eligible, great. Now you know that when your employees go to submit PSLF forms, they'll be able to get their employment certified with most likely no issues. The PSLF form is the employment certification employees need to submit to confirm their employment. In the event that your organization shows up as ineligible, undetermined, or not found, you'll have to provide your employees who are enrolling into the program with at least one of the following documents that can be submitted alongside their PSLF form. So examples of those documents are articles of incorporation, showing that you're a nonprofit organization, evidence that you're treated as a disregarded entity of an eligible organization, documents of your organization's FEIN, especially when you see that your organization is not found in the database, and descriptions of your organization's services, that you believe qualify you as a PSLF eligible employer, particularly if you're a nonprofit other than a 501c3. Once the documents in the form has been submitted by the employee, federal student aid will review your employee's PSLF form and the documents that are submitted. Once processed and hopefully approved, FSA will then change your your organization's status on the database to eligible. Right now, unfortunately, there's not a way for an organization itself to notify FSA of its eligibility. It can only be done through the individual employees in certification process. You can proactively, however, provide the documentation we just mentioned on your website or include it in a notice that you send to your employees about PSLF. And so speaking of notice sending to your employees, we want you to be empowered to advertise to your employees that you are a qualifying employer to both prospective and current employees. For prospective employees, you could include it as a benefit on your job posting. Note that you're considered a PSLF qualifying employer. That way they know that they can access the program if they get hired. It's also critically important for you to notify your current employees about the program because you're considered a reliable source of information for them. And so some employees maybe haven't heard about PSLF, or maybe they've heard it mentioned in passing, but haven't really received concrete information. And so you as an employer can fill in that information gap and get your employees curious about how they can access this benefit. For current employees, we've actually created some different letter templates that you can share in order to advertise, again, that you're a qualifying employer and to provide resources for your employees to access the benefit. The 3 different notices that I'll review real quick are similar to each other, but they share a different message depending on where the employee is at in their employment journey with you. So of course, we've got a notice for new employees. This is intended as an onboarding notice to help raise awareness of the program, provide key steps an employee has to take in order to eventually qualify for forgiveness. The annual notice, so we recommend sharing this with your employees annually, as well as any time that there are major PSLF regulations that change in order to continue raising awareness of the program. This is intended to be sent out annually because employees are really encouraged to send their PSLF forms to certify their employment every year. And so kind of getting that annual reminder is just really good for them to be able to remember to do that, and also to keep up to date with any rules and regulations that change. And finally, for separated employees, for employees that maybe are leaving your organization, it's important that borrowers get this information or kind of a reminder about doing their PSLF forms, because it can be hard for folks to get that certification after the fact. Borrowers have reported it being very difficult to go back to a prior employer to get that information. And it's also critical to know that employees need to be employed in the public sector when they submit their last employment certification. So if they've, gotten to the end where they've made that 120 payments, they need to be employed when they go to submit that form. So, if they're switching to the for-profit sector or retiring, they would no longer be eligible. So they want to make sure to get that application in beforehand.
So the second significant barrier that we've identified is for the employee to know who can sign their certification form for them. So we strongly recommend that you appoint someone to be your point of contact for PSLF, and that you designate an email address that can be provided on your website in these written communications that you may make to your staff. And we do recommend that you use a general email, something that won't change based on staffing. So if you have a general HR mailbox, or at the least someone that is familiar to your team. And we do recognize that not all offices have these structures of a formal HR office or some official staff. So we also want to share that according to the Department of Education, an authorized individual is anyone in your organization who has access to and is authorized to review employment information about your employees, such as dates of employment. And you can appoint one or more of these staff members to serve in this role. So employees can submit their PSLF form to their employer in two ways. The preferred option is for the borrower to complete the form digitally going on the studentaid.gov website and using the PSLF help tool. This is the most streamlined way to approach the employment certification process. Last year, the Federal Student Aid Office released a new feature on the PSLF help tool that allows employees and employers to digitally sign the PSLF form using DocuSign. Employers may direct employees to initiate the employment certification process by submitting the employment certification portion of the PSLF form to their PSLF contact via the PSLF help tool. The employer then digitally signs and returns the form through the PSLF help tool, which is then submitted by the Federal Student Aid Office for automatic processing. And I think Amber has just dropped the link for that site and information into the chat. So this link, it explains how you as an employer can fill out the form and has some helpful tips. Employees also can submit a paper form or a PDF version of the form to their employer for signature. Please just be aware that this option does require the borrower to take some additional steps to either mail, fax, or upload the manual form to their federal student aid account. And when you use this option, it is good for the employer to use some encrypted method for sharing the document through email, just to maintain that employee's confidentiality and their personally identifiable information. Now let's talk about how to communicate information about PSLF resources to your employees. The Office of the Student Loan Advocate's website has several resources available to help borrowers on their path toward PSLF forgiveness. I won't go through each one of these links today. Amber is going to drop the links in the chat. And again, we will provide a copy of the slide deck following the presentation. We encourage you to share these links with your employees. It's also a good idea to go through them yourself, just to understand a little bit about maybe what's on their side of it. And this first slide shows the links that are available on the Student Loan Advocate's website. And following that, we have some additional resources that are on the Federal Student Aid website. And all of these links are helpful, so if you can share them with your employees. So back to the, after all that, you say, so what's the best way to distribute this information to my employees? So the most important resource you can use is the letter templates that we've covered earlier to help your employees understand both this is an available program for them, that they need to certify their employment annually, as well as making sure you're separating employees, get that information before they go. We recommend maintaining the PSLF information on your internet or public-facing website. If you have that, I want to reiterate again, it's a cost-free recruitment and retention tool. And we also recommend including the PSLF point of contact, your EIN or FEIN, as well as your PSLF email address on your public-facing website. This ensures that even separated employees have this information as they need it. And again, this is something we hear often about being a barrier to eventually achieving PSLF forgiveness. Now I'll pass it on to Jessica, and she'll share more about employer best practices.
Thank you, Terry, and we're almost done here. Everyone, thank you for your patience. So finally, the last thing that we want to do is to ensure that your employees are successful in achieving PSLF, is that they need to get regular PSLF updates. So as someone that has been working in the world of student loans for the past few years, I'm going to be the first one to tell you that everything seems to be constantly changing. And while a lot of the changes that happened in the past 2 years to the PSLF program have benefited borrowers, a lot of borrowers are simply unaware or confused about these changes, right? And you can actually help this issue by providing updated PSLF information for your employees. And to make this very easy for you, our office has created a mailing list that you can subscribe to as an employer. And anytime there are relevant changes to the program and or new resources are added, we will share that information with you so that you can share that with your employees. And finally, if for some reason you have questions about the PSLF program as an employer, right, the Office of Financial Management is also available to answer any questions that you may have as an employer about PSLF. And you can email them at pslf@ofm.wa.gov. Now, if your employees, right, have questions about the program, you can also refer them to our office, the Office of the Student Loan Advocate. So borrowers can submit a student loan question or complaint about PSLF or any of the other topics that we have listed here through the Washington Student Complaint Portal, which is available at studentcomplaints.wa.gov, and they can receive individual help and assistance with their case. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you all today. This is the second time that we get to do an employer-facing presentation. The first time that we get to present to a nonprofit audience about this topic. So we really appreciate any feedback that you may have about the content that we shared today and how we can do better. So I'm asking you, if you have a chance, if you could fill out a small survey to let us know how we're doing so we can continue providing resources like this for Washington student loan borrowers and employees. We would really appreciate it. There's a QR code on the screen, and or Amber is also gonna, if you are not sure how to use the QR code, not tech savvy like me, you can just click on the link that Amber is sharing in the chat right now. So thank you once again. And if we have time, we would be happy to take some questions.
Thank you so much. Yes, we have time for any questions that might come up.
Oh, Jessica, you're muted. Are you trying to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say that maybe we should stop the recording now. Thank you.